So tonight we're talking about Bohemian Grove, the 2012 Doomsday Theory, and apparently some secret club of 9 mysterious men who've been running the planet since ancient times.
Ah, yes, the holy trinity of we're screwed.
Alright, it's not that dramatic. Bohemian Grove is basically rich guys in the woods, expensive cigars, overpriced whiskey, and probably some guy falling asleep in a hammock.
Oh yeah? Then explain the 10-foot stone owl. Normal camping trips don't come with a Walmart-sized Moloch statue.
Dude, chill out. Maybe they just like birds.
Birds don't demand sacrifices, Georgie.
What, you think Jeff Bezos is in the woods sacrificing what? His Prime subscription?
Okay, you joke, but the owl has seen things, dude. Darker than the congressional approval rate.
Fine, but the 2012 theory, you know that was just like the Mayan calendar rolling over, right?
What?
Like that was an ancient version of the Windows update.
Congratulations, reality is restarted. Please wait while we install glitches like TikTok, murder hornets, and the McRib is coming back every other year.
So you're saying the world ended in 2012 and everything since then has just been, what, a bad patch update?
Exactly. They downloaded Earth 2.0 but forgot to fix inflation and put the dinosaurs back. Freaking lazy developers.
Oh yeah, and let me guess, the 9 unknown men are all behind it?
Of course, 9 dudes sitting in a cosmic man cave hoarding secret scrolls and time travel, nuclear weapons, and probably the recipe for, Taco Bell's mystery meat.
You mean mystery meat?
Shut up, dude. It's whatever I say it is.
You're literally delusional, dude.
Agreed, disagreed.
Whatever, dude. You're saying 9 ancient sages controlling history, and they use their wisdom to invent, like, what? Baja Blast?
Hey, dude, if you've tasted it, then you know it's not from this dimension.
Oh, this is going to be a long, very long episode.
Yes, sir, dude. Buckle up, Professor Skeptic. Tonight, we're going from owl cults to time glitches to the 9 mysterious men who ever lived.
Whatever you say, dude. Welcome to The W.I.T.S Show, where smart meets stupid and somehow makes sense. My name's Georgie, and I'm thinking out loud so you don't have to.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is The W.I.T.S Show, from what I think seriously to you.
W.I.T.S, The W.I.T.S Show.
Cool story, bro.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're back, because you got my back, and I appreciate that. But before we dive into tonight's rabbit hole of owls, doomsday calendars, and the 9 mysterious dudes who probably have better Wi-Fi than I do, I've got to give a big shout out to one of my favorite listeners and now a true friend of the show, Mr. Timothy Malloy. Tim, you're a real MVP. Not only do you follow the page, you comment, you subscribed. You've basically done everything short of sneaking into Bohemian Grove to give me some inside footage. And honestly, if anyone could pull it off, it'd probably be you. I absolutely love having people like you on the W.I.T.S Show crew. You've got personality, the sense of humor, and the love for the conspiracies that make this whole ride worth it. So thank you, brother. This episode is for you. And if the 9 unknown men are listening, I'm pretty sure you'd be their 10th, buddy. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and dive into the next episode. Bohemian Grove. The name itself sounds like some kind of artsy bed and breakfast tucked away in the redwoods. An escape for poets and painters to sip wine, write bad sonnets, and complain about the fog. And to be fair, that's not far from how it started. Back in 1872, a group of journalists and artists in San Francisco formed the Bohemian Club as a kind of intellectual retreat. They called themselves Bohemians because it sounded exotic, European, and rebellious. But here's the twist. Over time, the starving artists were replaced by bankers, CEOs, and politicians with fat wallets and bigger egos. The creatives faded out and the power brokers moved in. By the turn of the 20th century, the Grove wasn't just a retreat for writers anymore. It had morphed into a secret meeting ground for the people running the world. So picture this, a 2,700-acre private forest in Monterey, California, shielded by towering redwoods and guarded by fences, private security, and no trespassing signs. Every July, more than 2,000 of the world's most powerful men descend onto this place. Presidents, senators, CEOs, military leaders, there's even celebrities that are sprinkled in. It's been attended by everyone from Richard Nixon and Ronald Reagan to both Bushes, Colin Powell, Donald Rumsfeld, and Henry Kissinger. Even Arnold Schwarzenegger, back when he was the governor, was known to attend. And once you start listening to the guest book, it reads less like a camp roster and more like a global power directory. So what do these people actually do out there? Well, officially, it's a mix of relaxation and bonding, campfires, cocktails, golf games, long talks under the redwoods. Sounds wholesome. But here's where it gets strange. The signature event, the one that turned Bohemian Grove from an eccentric getaway into a conspiracy legend, is something called the Cremation of Care. The ceremony takes place in front of a 40-foot stone owl, a looming carved idol that dominates the clearing like an ancient guardian. Members wear hooded robes, carry torches, and gather as a group around a massive fire pit. Then they burn an effigy called Dolker. The idea, according to the official Bohemian Club lore, is that they're symbolically casting off their worldly worries, burning away the burdens of office, politics, and responsibilities so that they can truly relax. The effigy is a theoretical prop, a stand-in for stress, if you will. That's the official version. But to anyone watching from the outside, it looks like a cult ritual. And let's be honest, if you saw grainy footage of 100 hooded figures chanting in front of a giant owl idol while setting fire to a human-shaped figure, you probably wouldn't think, ah yes, stress management theater. You'd think, okay, either these guys are resurrecting Voldemort or I've stumbled onto the world's most elite LARP session of all time. The symbolism only fuels speculation. The owl is often linked to Moloch, a deity from the ancient Near East often associated fairly or unfairly with child sacrifice. Conspiracists argue that the effigy being burned isn't just a symbol of stress, but a symbolic offering. Mainstream historians dismiss this as a wild interpretation, but the optics are undeniably creepy. And it's not just the ritual. The Grove has its own set of mottos and traditions. The most famous is "Weaving spiders come not here." On the surface, it's a poetic way of saying, don't do business here. Leave your politics and corporate deals outside the gates. But multiple former attendees have claimed that the motto is more wishful thinking than reality. In fact, major political decisions and business deals have allegedly taken place here. It's said that in the 20th century, Nixon and Reagan struck an understanding at Bohemian Grove about who would run for president first, smoothing the path for Reagan's eventual rise. And speaking of Nixon, his feelings about Bohemian Grove are both hilarious and infamous. On the Nixon tapes, his secretly recorded White House conversation, he once called the Grove the most... Yeah, I'm not going to say that on here. You're going to have to Google that one. But basically, he dismissed the whole thing as bizarre, theatrical, and not his scene. And yet, he still went. Which kind of tells you everything you need to know about its importance. Fast forward to the year 2000, when the Grove went from whispered rumor to viral conspiracy. A then relatively known Alex Jones claimed to have infiltrated the Grove with a cameraman. He snuck through the woods, dodged guards, and filmed the cremation of care ceremony. The footage was grainy and shaky, and it shows the owl, the robed figures, and the fire, and the burning effigy. To the conspiracy theorist, it was confirmation that everything they'd suspected for years. The powerful don't just meet in secret. They participate in a ritual theater with the occult undertone. And to the skeptics, the footage proved nothing more than a bunch of old guys in robes play-acting their way through a bad Shakespearean tragedy. Either way, Jones's film pushed Bohemian Grove firmly into the public informations as the ultimate symbol of secret elite gatherings. Now here's where the interpretations split. On one hand, you have the mundane explanation. Bohemian Grove is nothing more than a glorified summer camp for rich, powerful men. It's an old boys club where networking happens, friendships are strengthened, and people feel free to speak candidly without the press recording every word. On the other hand, you have the conspiratorial interpretation. The Grove isn't just about networking, but about ritual, control, and binding oaths. That owl, the fire, and the pageantry are a part of an initiation into a deeper kind of loyalty among the world's decision makers. The secrecy doesn't help their case. No journalists are allowed inside. No recordings, no phones, no leaks, at least in theory. Guests have to pass through heavy security, and even locals know better than to try to sneak in. The whole setup feels more like a fortress than a campground. And humans being humans, when you put that many locks on a door, everyone assumes that the treasure inside must be enormous. To me, the creepiness of Bohemian Grove isn't necessarily about whether the owl is Moloch or whether the effigy has darker symbolism. It's about the sheer concentration of power behind those fences. 2,000 men who shape the policies, economies, and wars of the world gather in one place, away from oversight, protected from the press and free to talk candidly. That alone should make anyone curious, or nervous. Whether they're role-playing droids or just smoking cigars, the fact remains. The most powerful people are meeting in secret, and we don't get a seat at the campfire. So is Bohemian Grove an elite frat party with bad theater? Or is it the cultic heartbeat of the global elite? The answer might depend on how you see the world, but either way, the image sticks. World leaders, CEOs, and bankers in hooded robes standing in the firelight before a 40-foot owl in the California woods. If that's just relaxation, then these guys need to rethink their definition of casual. Because honestly, that does not sound casual. Anyway, moving forward, did the world end in 2012? If you spent any time down the rabbit holes of the internet, you've probably run across this one. The world didn't survive 2012. According to this theory, reality as we knew it ended, collapsed, or fundamentally shifted back when the Mayan calendar supposedly ran out of days on December 21st, 2012. I remember this theory growing up. Well, not necessarily growing up. I guess I was an adult when it was going on. But I remember sitting in the bar looking at this calendar, and it said Doomsday Calendar, and it was a legit countdown to this day. And then, of course, you had everybody freaking out, well, all the loonies, like, oh my god, the world's gonna end. But, of course, it didn't. Or did it? Because depending on who you ask, specifically a conspiracy theorist, they'll tell you a whole different story. Let's start with the roots. The Mayan long count calendar used by the ancient Mesoamerican civilization was ran in cycles. One major cycle was called the Bactin, and it lasted 394 years. The 13th Bactin was set to end in late December 2012. Scholars of Mayan culture said this wasn't a prediction of doom. It was just the end of the cycle and the beginning of another, like flipping over your desk calendar at the end of the year. But popular culture took it differently. Hollywood churned this thing out to a disaster movie in 2012, full of crumbling landmarks and tidal waves. You know, like Hollywood does to everything. And then, of course, your doomsday preppers stocked up on canned beans like the apocalypse was scheduled. I'm actually surprised we had toilet paper on the shelves. I know, wrong apocalypse, whatever. Anyway, when nothing happened, obviously on that day, people shrugged it off, but that's where the deeper theory kicks in. Some believe that it ended. It did happen. It just didn't happen in the way we expected. The argument goes like this. Instead of a fairy tale apocalypse like World War Z or whatever, the world ended quietly, subtly, in a way that we didn't notice. Maybe we all slipped into a parallel timeline. Maybe the universe rebooted, like a computer crashing and reporting with a few bugs. Or maybe we all actually died, and what we're experiencing now is some kind of collective afterlife simulation. Now, that sounds like nuts, but supporters of this theory point to a strange culture shift around that timeline. Think about it. Before 2012, the world felt very different. The internet was still a tool and not yet overwhelming force in, well, everyday today. Smartphones were just gaining traction, social media hadn't fully reshaped politics, identity, and daily life. But after 2012, everything accelerated. Memes became culture, fake news entered the vocabulary, and society started feeling glitched. Conspiracy theorists argue that this is the evidence of us living in a fractured reality, a slightly off-kilter copy of what came before. Then there's the Mandela effect, the phenomenon where large groups of people remember the same event or detail, but it's incorrect. Did the Monopoly man have a monocle? Was it Bernstein Bears or Barnstein Bears? Nelson Mandela, alive or dead before the 90s? These odd mismatch in collective memory spiked in popularity around 2012, and for some people, they aren't mistakes. They're proof that we jumped timelines. Our consciousness is glitching because the real universe ended and now we're in a knockoff version. Science gets folded into the theory too. Around 2010, the Large Hadron Collider at CERN was switched on, smashing particles together at near light speed. Have you heard about that one? Because I remember hearing about this all of the time, like it was major news at the time right before it happened. Anyway, some theorists claim that doing so, scientists accidentally triggered the end of the world, collapsing our universe, creating a black hole, or shifting us into a parallel dimension. That timing, just a couple of years before 2012, makes for a juicy speculation. So maybe the Mayans weren't predicting a cosmic reset. Maybe they were just warning us about one. And if you look at culture after 2012, it really does feel like things got, well, weird. The rise of viral phenomena like Gangnam Style and the Harlem Shake, a sudden explosion of meme culture where nothing makes sense but everyone shares the joke. Politics around the globe took sharp divisive turns. Technology began to dominate life in a way it never had before. Did reality just naturally speed up, or are we living in a second-rate copy of the world we lost? From a psychological perspective, the 2012 theory is definitely fascinating. Humans crave patterns and endings. The idea that an ancient advanced civilization had marked this year as significant was enough to plant the seed in millions of minds. So when nothing catastrophic happened, the theory mutated because belief systems rarely die. And instead of abandoning the prophecy, people reframed it. The world did end, just not in the way you thought. It's the same trick cult leaders have used for centuries when doomsday predictions flop. They simply redefine the outcome. But that doesn't stop the thought experiment from being fun. What if we are living in a simulation? What if reality did collapse and everything since 2012 has been kind of a dream and we're all sharing it? I mean, seriously, think about it. How would you prove it otherwise? People point out glitches and strange coincidences, or the increasingly surreal nature of our culture as evidence. Others just simply enjoy the eerie possibility that nothing has felt quite right since the Mayan calendar supposedly ended. At the end of the day, the 2012 doomsday theory works because it taps into something universal. The fear that reality itself isn't stable. Whether you see it as science fiction, spiritual warning, or a cultural joke, it asks one of the most unsettling questions you can ask. How would you even know if the world had really ended? So maybe the Mayans were just marking the end of a cycle and the beginning of another. Maybe it's all a misunderstanding. Or maybe, just maybe, they were right. The cycle ended, the world ended, and we've been drifting ever since through a reality that isn't quite our real one. I don't know. That's for you to decide. I personally don't care where I'm at. As long as there's whiskey, I'm good to go. Now let's move from California forests and Mayan calendars into something even older. Something even stranger and more mysterious. See, this one's a personal favorite of mine. While I was digging into the Bohemian Grove story, I stumbled across this little gem. The legend of the 9 unknown men. If Bohemian Grove is about modern elites gathering in secret, and 2012 is about our reality possibly collapsing, then this one is about the ancient origins of a secret society themselves. An alleged brotherhood that has been hiding in plain sight for over 2,000 years. The story begins in India, in the 3rd century BCE under Emperor Ashoka the Great. Yes, Ashoka like Star Wars, except for this Ashoka was one of history's most fascinating rulers. And of course, the story is significantly different. After witnessing the horrors of war, particularly the bloody Kalinga War, he converted to Buddhism and vowed to rule with compassion instead of violence. Oh yeah, did I mention that this Ashoka's a guy? Probably not important. But according to the legend, Ashoka also realized something dangerous. Knowledge itself could be as destructive as armies. If advanced science and forbidden truths fell into the wrong hands, humanity could annihilate itself. So, he supposedly founded a secret society of 9 men. Handpicked scholars, scientists, and mystics, each entrusted with a book containing one branch of forbidden knowledge. The 9 were tasked with not only protecting this knowledge from misuse, but also quietly guiding humanity's development, nudging civilizations forward without ever revealing themselves. Think of them as the ultimate shadow think tank, guardians of secrets too dangerous for public, but too valuable to destroy. So what exactly was in these books? Well, the accounts differ, but the most popular version lists 9 categories of forbidden knowledge. 1 would be propaganda and psychological warfare, how to manipulate mass opinion, control scientists, and shape belief systems. 2 would be physiology, including methods of killing a person with a single touch, the so-called touch of death. Okay, calm down, Kill Bill. The 3rd one would be microbiology and biotechnology. Centuries ahead of its time, knowledge of germs and diseases that could be weaponized. The 4th one would be alchemy and transmutation of metals, including secrets of turning base metals into gold. Number 5 would be communication, advanced ways of transmitting information, possibly telepathy or technology beyond its era. 6 would be gravitation, the secret of flight, anti-gravity, and possibly even UFO-like crafts. 7 would be cosmology, the structure of the universe, including knowledge about parallel worlds and time. 8 would be light, secrets of optics, energy, and how light could be used as a weapon or a tool. 9 would be sociology, rules of society, how civilizations rise and fall, and how to control their direction. If this list is true, then the 9 unknown men weren't just guardians. They were centuries ahead of modern science. Imagine a secret council with knowledge of germ theory in 300 BCE. Or blueprints for flight before the Wright brothers, or psychological warfare strategies before social media ever existed. The conspiracy twist, of course, is that they've been quietly feeding pieces of this knowledge to humanity in small doses. Just enough to push us forward, but not enough to let us destroy ourselves. Some theorists even argue that history's great leaps, the Renaissance, the scientific revolution, even sudden bursts of technology in the modern ages, well, they're just the fingerprints of the 9, releasing just enough information to move civilization along. But they do it slowly, carefully, always controlling the pace. Others take it even further and say that the 9 still exist today. Some tie them to the Illuminati or the Freemasons or the Bilderberg Group, arguing that the modern hidden hand of power is just a continuation of Ashoka's original 9. Some even connect the UFO sightings, suggesting that their knowledge of gravity and light explains advanced craft. The legend has been linked to Nazi occult research, CIA mind control programs, and even CERN's particle physics experiment. In other words, whenever there's an unexplained breakthrough, someone points back to the 9. Of course, there's no hard evidence that the 9 unknown men actually existed. Most historians dismiss it as a myth, a tale passed down through folklore and speculative writing. The stories first appeared in Western accounts through French writer Louis Puels and Jacques Bougier in the 1960s book The Morning of the Magicians, which painted the 9 as the puppet masters of history. Since then, the legend has just stuck because, well, it's just too good. But the lack of proof doesn't make the idea any less captivating. Whether they're real or not, the 9 represents something deeper. Humanity's fear of knowledge being hidden from us, the idea that somewhere locked away in a vault or passed hand to hand through generations are the answers to our biggest questions? How to cure diseases, how to bend gravity, how to move through time, and the chilling thought that someone out there is keeping those answers from us? Deciding what we're ready for? If Bohemian Grove is the frat party of the powerful and 2012 is the glitch in our simulation, then the 9 unknown men are the godfathers of the secret societies, the original hidden cult. Whether they're real or not almost doesn't matter because the story reflects a truth we all sense. There's always knowledge we're not being told, and maybe, just maybe, someone's out there making sure it stays that way. So ask yourself this, what's scarier? That the 9 unknown men never existed and humanity is just bumbling through history by accident? Or that they do exist, quietly guiding us, pulling strings, and hiding knowledge that could change everything we know about life, the universe, and ourselves? Personally, I think that's the fun and the frustration of these theories. You never get a clear answer. You just get whispers or symbols or breadcrumbs that lead you deeper into the woods. And once you're there, standing in a firelight, staring up at that stone owl, or flipping through a forbidden book, you realize that the mystery is the point. The unknown keeps us searching. So until the day someone finally pulls back the curtains and shows us what's really going on, all we can do is keep asking questions, keep digging, and keep imagining what's possible. However you perceive it, that's your own opinion. I'm just telling you what I think. So remember, keep your eyes open, your mouth sharp, and your sense of humor sharper. Because the world may have ended in 2012, but the conspiracies definitely didn't. And if the 9 unknown men really have the book of time travel, I'd really appreciate a loaner copy because I've got a few Mondays I'd like to return. Anyway, my name's Georgie, and I'm thinking out loud so you don't have to.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the W.I.T.S Show from What I Think Seriously to You.
W.I.T.S.